The Runnin Utes are rolling right now. We're talking about Utah basketball and the recent success they've had on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We greatly appreciate it. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. With LinkedIn Talent Solutions, you guys have an easy opportunity to help you guys find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. My name is JT Wistrcill, host of this podcast and former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And speaking of this podcast, you can get it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And you know what other podcasts you can get? It's the Runnin Hoops Podcast, and the podcaster himself, Andrew Crowley, joins us. And Andrew, we talked about a month ago, I want to say, about just expectations with Utah basketball and things, and we were optimistic. We were talking about, I think I said 6. I said as high 6. I think you said 7, 8 right in there, but you're with me. We felt like we were bullish on this team, believed. And the Sam Houston game happens. The Idaho State game happens. There's some ugly wins in there. They're wins, but not wins you come away being like, yes, this team. And it's just like, man, I just don't know what to make of them. And then last Thursday happens. It didn't get the coverage it deserved because of the Pac-12 championship game, but wanted to make sure to have you on to talk about here because what a performance by this Utah team to get a win at home against the 4th best team in the country, a win they hadn't gotten it to this magnitude since 2002 was the number I saw. So just incredible by this Utah team. And then they have avoided a loss to Washington State today. They kind of keep that momentum going. They're 7-2 on the season. They're 2-0 in conference play and a win against a top 4 team. How about those Utes?
Oh, I mean, first of all, what a weekend to be a Utah fan in general, right? And the Runnin Utes just kept it going today against Washington State or Sunday against Washington State. So, they're certainly looking a lot, the part that some of us thought optimistically they might be by the end of the season. They're doing it in December, and that's pretty cool.
It's really cool. It really is unbelievable. And do the last couple performances make you kind of, I mean, we were already high on this team, but as I said, I think once I saw how they started to play, I kind of regretted putting them at 7. That's just being honest. It's not like you can kind of feel good about feeling them at 6 or 7, watching them lose to a team like Sam Houston, hey, really good team, but shouldn't lose to. Either way, you want to slice it. And you saw them down at the Sunshine Slam. You saw them in person, this team, and kind of how some of those tough games played out too. But really does feel like after wins against Arizona, it's back to feeling good about this team. And by no means is this now I feel like a contender for the Pac-12. They're with the UCLAs, or they're in the same tier as Arizona as a team. But hey, they beat them, and that's what matters. And this is the kind of team that could get hot and maybe even still win maybe even 2 games in the conference tournament because they're capable of playing with that confidence. And it is weird to think I feel even better about this team now. I still feel like right in that 6-7 range finish in the season, but I feel even better about their chances just to get in and win a game, because how many times do we see them come up short in that exact facet last season? And they already have the signature win of Craig Smith's tenure, and we're not even 2 months into his second season with Utah basketball.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, they have really exceeded expectations on the floor, right? I mean, we've seen them in the past have a lead against a really good team, and it just withers away. Down in Fort Myers against Mississippi State, they trailed at halftime. They were really struggling. And, sitting there in the arena, I actually thought that, Mississippi State might pull away in the second half, and they didn't. Utah, battled back. They got a lead. Neither team shot really well in that game. It was one of those, hey, somebody has to win this one. But, you could tell that Utah was up to the task physically against a team like Mississippi State, which is a top, 25, top 30 team in KenPom. And then, coming back against Arizona came out, they made their run, but Utah just never faltered. They never gave up the lead, and they led that thing wire to wire. And, context is everything, right? And I think that when you look at the Utes right now at 7-2, 2-0 in the conference for the first time since 2017, 2018, and just the third time ever, right? Yeah. In the Pac-12 era, at least. You look at them against the rest of the league, And like, you've got, Oregon's under 500, Stanford's under 500, Washington State is now under 500. And so compared to sort of some of their brethren right there in the middle, they don't have any bad losses. I think Sam Houston, is a tough loss, but it's not going to end up being a bad loss.
For sure.
And then Mississippi State's not a bad loss. So,
no.
They're right in a great position heading into their final 4 December games out of conference.
I mean, they won 11 games last year. There's no way in my mind they now win under that or even like tie that. They should well exceed and meet that kind of 15 mark that we had talked about early on. And I think it's great that we feel as good about that. And I do want to talk more about this Arizona game. Just what were you thinking as you were watching it? Because I know for me, it was like, it just feels like, oh no, we're gonna end up blowing. I mean, they cut it to 6 in the second half, and it just feels like we're just gonna find a way to lose this, and we didn't. I mean, an unbelievable performance from Brandon Carlson, what he's able to do out there. Just the moments we continue to see from Kita too, just continue to get me so excited as the Utah basketball fan here. Stefanovic stepping up, Marco Anthony coming back has been huge for this team too. But as you mentioned, just that ability to hold on, it was so encouraging, and that just felt like we've seen maybe baby steps this program has taken. That felt like the leap, and it was so much fun to watch play out. And when that final horn sounded in, we actually did it.
Yeah, so you're going to love this. I actually had to watch the game on delay because I was at a piano recital. And I accidentally saw the halftime score, and I was like, well, now I'm in. And so I'm there at my daughter's piano recital, and I'm following it along on my phone, and I'm pumping my fist with every basket down the stretch, and people are looking at me, and I'm like, no, I really love Little Drummer Boy. But but then going back and watching it, kind of knowing what happens, but even following along, it was just big shot after big shot, turnover after turnover from Arizona, holding a elite, at this point in the season, an elite 3-point shooting team, fourth in the country to well under their average, did the same thing against Washington State today. I think it's time that we start thinking about this Utah team as a team that defends and rebounds the ball at a very, very high level. But going through that, the Arizona game, watching what Keba Keita did, watching what Brandon Carlson did, 5 threes. I mean, these guys took the fight to Arizona in a way that a Utah team has not taken the fight to an opponent in a long, long time. And Arizona had no response. And that was probably the most encouraging thing that I saw from the game, because how many times have we seen teams come into the Huntsman Center, punch Utah in the mouth
last year,
and they just laid down, question their manhood, and they just laid down.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to be on the other end of that for once. That's for sure.
It really was. And you just talk about like even last year's Arizona game. I mean, Koloko was the better center on the floor, matched up with Brandon Carlson. Kerr was the best player on the floor, had the triple-double, all those things. I mean, obviously, Benedict Mathurin, he's incredible. And you can see how much Arizona misses him with the way he's dominating in the NBA currently right now, too. It was just so encouraging. And you mentioned the struggles from 3. I mean, they're 14% from 3. Some of that's their own struggles, but also the defense Utah had. I believe Utah forced 11 turnovers in just the first half on the Wildcats, and they turned that into 15 points off turnovers, too. So just really encouraging from this Utah team. You have to love the energy they're playing with right now too and rolling. And as we mentioned, they were able to keep it up against Washington State. We're going to talk more about that game against Washington State in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about our friends at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Make sure you guys head over and add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. There are so many great employees and potential people out there who are eager and ready to work, and LinkedIn is the #1 job site for small businesses as rated in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates you want to talk to with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find those qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. So make sure you guys head over to LinkedIn Jobs and cash in today on a couple of great opportunities to find some great employees. Andrew, coming back into this one, who's been a great piece to this Utah basketball team is my guy, Raleigh Wooster. I have to apologize to Raleigh. Before the season, I kind of did the Shaq meme. I apologize. I wasn't familiar with your game. I was negative on Raleigh. I thought Mike Saunders would win the starting job. I thought he would take it. Mike underwhelmed up to this point, but that's the nice thing about one of the things for this Utah team you can look at is they're clicking, and the guy we thought was going to be a huge part of any success they had this season hasn't gotten going. So maybe the ceiling is even higher once he gets more integrated into the offense. Got to remember the season is still so young too. There's still some great December ball left to be played for this Utah team and an opportunity for him to still find his role with the team. But Raleigh, I mean, a point away, an assist away from a triple-double against Arizona in a monumental game there. You mentioned the Mississippi State game, even today versus Washington State. There's so many moments where it feels like Raleigh's able to step up and come up clutch for this team. And I'm really impressed with the guy he has become in these moments where I do like the ball in his hands. I don't always necessarily want him to take the shot, but I feel good about him bringing up the floor, making the right decision there. And I am very happy that I was very wrong about Raleigh Worcester going into this season. And Raleigh, keep doing your thing. Shut me up, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, Craig Smith, he talks a lot, but he'll tell you things without telling you things. And one of the things he's talked about is the guys that are getting playing time right now are guys that he can trust to make the right decision in the right moment. And that has been Raleigh Worcester. He dribbles into some bad positions sometimes, but for the most part, number one, he's a lockdown defender. I mean, he really locked down Kirk Risa in the game on Thursday night. And I think he did a good job today as well. Mike Saunders is starting to get in there. And I think that he's got a skill set that's important. He's got a skill set that's important for the Utes. He's got that quick first kind of jab step that he can get to the basket with. But, Raleigh's a big guard. He's Craig talks about him being a high school quarterback. He makes the right passes. He makes a lot of the right decisions. And, he's certainly the engine that makes this thing go right now.
Are you as excited as I am about what we've seen from Keba so far?
Oh, man. There's no wasted motion with Keba Keita. He gets the ball and he goes up. And if you get in his way, you're making a bad business decision. That's for sure.
The athleticism he brings to the defensive end, too, when you look at guys like Lahat, who would come in last year, Deshaun Mahorcic, they just don't have that ability to leap out the gym and protect the rim like that. So it leads to those memorable blocks like when you have hey, shout out to Ben Carlson, too, who played some much better basketball, especially he wasn't as good today against Washington State, but against Arizona did a lot of good things. He had dunked on an Arizona defender. Then you go down the other end. Everyone on the bench is already holding each other back. They're so hyped. And then there's Keba with a massive block under the hoop. It's those moments that just revitalize the team, get the energy going, and just a guy who really does create Sports Center top 10s, as I've been saying going into the season too. And I just love watching him play, and I love watching him play with Brandon Carlson too.
Yeah, and the best part about it is we're just scratching the surface on what this guy can be at Utah. I think that's the most encouraging thing. And I'll go back to I listen to Craig a lot, and he talks about guys starting to put things together, whether it's a transfer or a freshman. And you're seeing that from Keba Keita. He's getting more minutes because he's starting to figure things out. Yep. He's still having some of those freshman struggles with fouls. But, I mean, that play in the Washington State game where he pulled down the rebound, kind of turned through 3 or 4 guys and then went up on Muhammad Gay, who's, an NBA prospect on some level. Was just incredible, and just again shows you what his ceiling can be.
I mean, you talk about him. You talk about like Gay too. I mean, 20 and 11 today, so he obviously showed what he could do in that environment too. And it's a positive that Keba makes those kind of things and can do and has those opportunities. And it's okay when you got 5 fouls. You're coming off the bench. I'm okay with him fouling out and being aggressive. He's going to learn when not to be in those different situations like that. But we just talked about the resilience of this Utah team too. And it is like in a game like this where you have Brandon Carlson, who does end up fouling out in this one, and you look only 7 points in the game. It's like, oh no, we're going to underwhelm. Goes into overtime. How's it going to turn out? And you get a win on the road without him because of guys like Stefanovic coming in, stepping up. I mentioned Raleigh, Gabe Madsen. We know Marco Anthony is I'm going to continue to sing his praises because I just think he's just one of those winning players that you want on your team. He makes the right pass. He can score some tough buckets. He's a guy I like that ball in his hands a lot late, honestly, because I have a feeling I just trust him to be able to get a basket, or I know he's not going to settle for a bad shot more times than not. So it's just encouraging to see this team be able to win games where you need Brandon Carlson at your best to beat Arizona. But it's nice to see when he's not at his best, they can still win games in this conference.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, if you followed Twitter today, the statement was all the same from all the fans, right? Like, this is a game that they lose 9 times out of 10 the
Yeah.
last couple of years, and they found a way to win. Washington State was without one of their main scorers, Jay Mullins, and so when another team is kind of wounded like that, you've just got to find a way to win, and they did that. By hook or by crook. It's hard to evaluate them on this game because of the officiating and
Yes.
all of the whistles that we got in the second half. But again, it's just a matter of, you gotta dig deep, all the sports cliches, and just find a way to win. And they did that. And now they've built themselves some momentum going into the rest of this month and into conference play.
You mentioned the rest of this month. Get Jacksonville State coming up, UTSA, BYU, TCU, then the Christmas break. So that's kind of really where then you get Cal Stanford after that, kind of in late December. But I really want to focus on that stretch right there. How do you feel about this team going into that stretch? Because I feel really good about them. We know BYU has been very up and down to start the season, to put it lightly. So I think it is a great opportunity for this Utah team to continue to roll and build that momentum going into that Christmas break where these guys are fired up coming back. And it's not going to be a winless January like it was last season. I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, hey, shout out to Eric Peterson and the South Dakota Utes for their win over BYU this weekend. But yeah, I mean, Jacksonville State coming in on Thursday, I think, or Wednesday. They are the third straight team that Utah will face that's like top 15 in three-point shooting. So it's another team they're going to have to get out and defend. They won the Atlantic Sun tournament last year, or maybe they won the regular season. I think Bellarmine actually won the tournament, couldn't go.
Gotcha.
But so they're an NCAA tournament team, kind of bottom line. UTSA has kind of been an up and down squad so far this year. And then, going into Provo, it'll be your second true road game of the year. That's a hostile environment. Doesn't matter how poorly BYU has played, you're going to get their best shot. And the fans are obviously going to be all over you. But certainly you feel a lot better about the BYU TCU game now that we've seen what they did against Mississippi State, Arizona, and Washington State. And I mean, dare I say this, JT, they've got the beginnings of a tournament resume here in early December with these two wins that they just got.
100%. I mean, when you get wins like literally at the end of the season, when we're looking at potential bubble teams and things like that, you're going to look at it like, well, Utah beat Arizona. And depending on how Utah's the rest of the season plays out too, that's one that could really hurt Arizona as well. So it is going to be kind of interesting to see how it works. But I love that you made that point too, because it's exactly what it is. It is the early showings of that when you're off to this 7-2 start. I believe Utah's moving up in those Ken Palm rankings, as you talked about too. So it's just a really encouraging time for the Runnin Utes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we expect the rest of the season to play out with these early season encouragements that we've encountered in a second. But first, I want to tell you guys about our friends at BetOnline. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis this season. That's right. I'm talking about BetOnline. Get the latest odds trends for every professional amateur league out there. From football, basketball, to soccer, to esports, they've got it all at BetOnline. College football may be wrapping up, but there's still bowl season just getting underway. NFL football well in the swing of things. We know college basketball, what that provides. NBA, yes, Team USA may be out of the World Cup, but there's still some other fun games for you guys to get in on. Also look for those esports, as we mentioned. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those on BetOnline too, where they're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also want to talk to you guys about UCCU. UCCU is offering a 15-month savings certificate with an incredibly high APY of 4.00%. Plus, you can jump up to an even higher rate of return anytime during the life of your certificate. Guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but as you know, interest rates and inflation rates are on the rise. But that's why UCCU is here to help. They're offering a 15-month savings certificate with an incredibly high APY of 4.00%. You can get that savings certificate for as little as $500, making this an awesome opportunity for every type of saver, big or small. And check this out. UCCU will also allow you to jump up to an even higher interest rate once anytime during the life of your savings certificate. That way, if yields continue to rise, you have the option to jump up to an even higher yield, which makes it a great savings tool in the rising interest rate environment. Plus, opening a UCCU savings certificate is super easy. You can do it online, over the phone, or just stop by any UCCU branch. But remember, this offer is only for a limited time. So if you have a savings that are just in a standard savings account sitting there getting a UCCU savings certificate, that way your savings can start working harder and easier to earn you money. Visit UCCU.com or UCCU branch to learn more today. UCCU, love where you bank. One thing Utah fans are loving right now is the way this team is absolutely rolling at the moment, Andrew. And come back into this one. What do you feel like the biggest difference is for Craig Smith's team from last year? And I think the biggest thing I might point to, I really feel like it's the culture. And what I mean by that is I feel like there were a lot of players on last year's team who were really felt like they should be starting and kind of frustrated at that. And whenever they came in off the bench, there was kind of that mindset at times, like, I'm going to get mine. There was kind of some weird and interesting vibes there, whether you're talking about a Dave Jenkins, a Booth Gotch, a Mahorchich, all those things. I just think they were so transfer heavy that in a lot of ways it hurt them. I think you look at a guy who came in like a Ben Carlson, and I just don't feel that. Yes, he's starting, but it doesn't feel like he's about out there trying to get his. Even Mike Saunders, I'm sure he's frustrated. He's not playing a lot, but it's still it seems to be good vibes on the team. And maybe he's the one guy it's one guy. That's all it really feels like in this scenario. So having so many guys come back and adding new young players that have been able to do things, guys getting better in the second year, I just feel like it's an increased culture, which makes sense in your second year. And I think Chris Burgess has to be attributed to getting that settled in as well. Well, as the jobs that Craig Smith has done is he's just one of the most passionate coaches in the country too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talked about Mike Saunders and how his role hasn't necessarily been defined just yet. He went through a stretch there where he played like 4, 6, and 5 minutes in a 3-game stretch. But you watch him on the bench, he's hyped up for the guys that are doing well. And, to your point, that's a culture thing, right? Like some of these guys are losing minutes. Luka Tarlek is losing minutes, and he's out there encouraging his teammates down the stretch today at Washington State. So you love to see that. I think they're tougher. They are a top 25 rebounding team in the country. They out-rebounded Arizona. They out-rebounded Washington State today. And one of the things I talked about on my podcast at the end of last year is that, the difference between Utah being a bad rebounding team and Utah being an elite rebounding team is pretty negligible, and they're doing that way better this year. And so, all of that speaks to culture, obviously, but yeah, I mean, they're hustling better. They're out rebounding people. They're still giving up a lot of offensive rebounds, which they really got to work on, especially as we get into the throes of conference play. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference is that this is a group that just cares. And, like you said, Brandon Carlson can score 7 points and foul out. And there are enough guys to say, hey, not your night. We got this. And, they push through and get the win.
All right, Andrew. All right, we talked last time about wins, how we feel this Utah team shakes out. If you could, would you change your wins prediction now? And how many wins do you think this team will get on this season?
Oh man, I think I had him at I had him a little higher than you. I was either like 17 or 18 wins,
maybe. Yeah,
on the season.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is you can see a path to a 20-win season right now at 7-2 with the games they've got left in December and the way that conference play has shaken out. Now, are they going to go on the road and beat everybody? No, of course not. But some of these teams that have really struggled to start the season, they've all got to come to the Huntsman Center. And so Utah, at a minimum, should feel confident holding serve at home against most of these teams. Maybe UCLA comes in and beats them. Maybe they lose to UCLA on the road. But, yeah, I mean, I think I'd bump them up into the 20-22 win range at this point,
I'm with you. I'm feeling 20 as well. I mean, like you mentioned, they're definitely going to be over 10 wins to me by the time we get out of December. And then that gives you January and February, where I don't think this team is done getting upsets. I'm sure they're going to have a bad loss or two. It's college basketball. That happens. But the difference this year will be those surprise wins. It's going to happen. I love the mix of veterans and youth this team has. I actually feel like it's come together really nice. And look, we be overreacting a little bit to one game, but at the same time, how can you not? It's the 4th team in the country, and you beat them in pretty dominant fashion in a lot of ways. I know it got down to 6, but they usually stretched it out again. So I feel really good about this team, and I feel the same way. I feel like we're heading towards a 20-win mark like that. And is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you feel like is really important to this early portion success of this team?
I think that they're doing a better job of adjusting in game to certain things, or at least game to game, right? Sam Houston came in and they fronted the post with Brandon Carlson, really took him out of his rhythm, really took him out of his game. And now you're starting to see other teams try to do that. But, how did he respond against Arizona? Well, he shot a bunch of threes, right? So I think they're doing a better job of not only adjusting to what people are doing against their offensive personnel, but really taking out the best players on the other team, or at least some of them. Obviously, you mentioned Gay had, 20 and 11 today, and he's just kind of a freak. But, TJ Bamba struggled at times. The Powell, the transfer from Tennessee, struggled at times. So, look at what they did against Kirk Carissa, who had a triple-double last time they played. So, I think the coaching adjustments are getting better. There's still some things that they can work on, obviously.
For sure.
The turnovers, the offensive rebounding. But, I think we've covered it.
It feels really good, and you got to feel good about this team right now. And, Andrew, if people want to continue to feel good about Utah basketball, I feel like there's a podcast they should listen to.
Well, the Runnin Hoops Podcast is the exclusive basketball podcast of the Runnin Utes. We just talk all about basketball. Okay. I slip in some football from time to time. I gave my Pac-12 championship game prediction, which was, by the way, Utah, 42-31. So not bad. Not bad. But yeah, at Runnin Hoops on Twitter, Runnin Hoops Podcast, wherever you get a podcast. Would love the support, and give us a follow.
And especially too for people loving what Brandon Carlson's doing, you get to have him on a ton too, right, Andrew?
That's right. Every 2 weeks, Brandon Carlson stops by the podcast. It's a really fun conversation. I always throw him a curveball or two that he's not ready for, and he gives it back pretty well. So it's a good time.
Sounds like the same player we see in game. So make sure you guys head over to the Runnin Hoops podcast, as well as give Andrew a follow at Runnin Hoops on Twitter. Andrew, always great having you on. If you guys are in the market for a second listen every day, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, the take of the day, big game recaps, the biggest stories in sports. It's all available on Locked On Sports Today. It's on YouTube, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcast. That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes, but we'll see you tomorrow.